Hey everybody, welcome to TV Chef Fantasy League, the podcast with a lot to prove. You see what I did
Yeah,
there?
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm your host and commissioner, Mike Cablon. Joining me via Zoom are my co-hosts Sierra Kato and Iffy Wadiway. I'm coming to you from a hotel room I checked into mere minutes ago, so I don't have my wits about me. What am I missing in America right now, you guys?
Hmm. Can't say. I don't know. Not
Perfect.
much that I can think of at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I haven't been gone that long. I can't imagine that the entire world has changed. Okay, we've got a lot to cover. Um, and I'll just say right up top, feel free to jump in and correct me at any point if I'm missing anything because the Wi-Fi here was terrible, and so I might have missed some stuff on this week's episode. Speaking of missing stuff, so a few people wrote in and pointed out some points that I missed last week. And so I want to address those now. I feel like sometimes people are like, why didn't you talk about this? It's because I'm stupid. It's because I'm just one man and it's hard to keep track of all the points that I set up for our league.
Hmm.
Um, but so last week, we talked about how Nellie talked about her five unborn children with the stars on her little puppet theater. Clearly, that is about someone who is deceased. So that is a half point there. Forgot to award that. I also
Mm.
missed that last week. Eileen said that her hands were shaking. So that is another
Oh
half point
yeah.
there.
Mm.
Thanks to everyone who checked me on that. Please keep checking us because, and when I say us, it's me. Again, please check me because I'm very dumb.
So what's the
Um,
new? Yeah, It's a lot to keep track of. what's the
it's a lot to
new
keep.
that the new
Uh,
like rankings after that, big update.
oh,
Thank you. I thank
okay.
you, everyone. Keep him honest.
I forgot to adjust the scores for last week. I folded these into this week's scores, so
Okay,
we'll go
then
over
we'll
that
just
at the
wait.
end of
Then
the
we'll
show.
wait. No, yeah, Cool. don't Part of worry. the You're traveling.
Suspense.
Yeah.
And the suspense, go ahead and raise the bar for the suspense because this week gets wild with the points.
Lots of tears.
So many tears,
Tears.
so many
I Yeah. mean,
tears.
bread is crazy. And I mean, who knew proving was a thing? Who knew any of these things?
That sometimes you got to prove twice, you know?
Yeah, you gotta let it prove. You gotta double prove. Man,
I feel like it's such a stereotype for, I mean, someone on the show, this episode, address it. It's such a stereotype on the show to like stare at your oven, but this is the episode where you're kind of just sitting around and waiting for something to happen.
fair enough. Yeah, I didn't even know. Yeah, honestly, they made so much bread this episode, and then they had to make. I mean, we'll get into it, but they made just a ridiculous amount of bread. and remember, they're
Yeah,
making bread for the king of bread,
that's right.
as Apparently,
The bread
stated
father.
by my Nelly, Noan, the king of bread. oh,
Yeah.
Nelly.
Yeah, this is really Paul's week to sort of throw his weight around, and he did. Um, okay, one last little checkup on the rules from last week. Someone pointed out that in the draft, I counted hugging as helping. I counted emotional support as helping. And then they pointed out that last week a bunch of people hugged Andy. Why didn't I count that as helping? And the answer is because, again, I'm stupid. And I'm just going to go back on that rule now because the beauty of being a commissioner of a league is you can just do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it's too hard to count how many people hugged Andy and too hard to do that on a consistent basis going forward. So from now on, helping is just like helping. I got to see
Right.
like hands on the bake, helping, helping.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
hugging. They're real cute, cutesy little crew. So they'd be hugging lots. And honestly, we can't keep track.
they be hugging lots.
It's a lot.
Um, Okay, another update from last week. Sierra, I'm calling you out. We found out Scientology is not buying the
Oh
Jim
yeah.
Henson building.
Sorry. I did, yeah, my part in spreading misinformation. Listen, we're all a part of the problem. And, even when you think, meaning me, when I think that I maybe know my facts, sometimes that's why our audience has to do their own research. So, yeah,
Well,
apparently they're not
I'm
they're
always a
not
little
buying it.
wary when someone's like, do your own research. I'm like, not if you're stupid.
Exactly. This is part of the misinformation train. These are all
Yeah.
the buzzwords that come with it. Do your own research. Don't do your own research, whatever you want to do. But yes,
Mhm,
apparently
mhm.
that was fake news. They're
Fake
not buying.
news. But you weren't alone. It was so the rumor was so rampant that the Jim Henson company had to say, we're not selling to Scientology, don't worry. So
Right.
I don't hold you personally liable. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about from last week, we talked about Noel Fielding's wardrobe because M did the research on the sweater he was wearing last week. A bunch of people sent in the Instagram Noel Fielding's wardrobe, which apparently every week they like source what he is wearing. Thank you for sending that in to everyone who sent that, but they haven't updated for this year. So we're going to go ahead and continue trying to do our own detective work.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are from 2023.
It's hard to keep up on your social media, you know? We respect that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Bread Week. I'll just say right up top, I'm bummed that no one got any points for anything being raw. I feel like this is the one week where it's like it's hard to call a cookie raw, but like bread
Mhm.
can be raw. So no one scored any points there.
Hmm.
Um, and this is my least favorite intro skit so far. The
Oh,
writers were
right.
kind of just
I
like,
kind
let's
of
make like
forgot about
12 puns. It was just like an album of like
Oh,
bread
yes. Oh, of
puns.
the different, yes.
Yeah.
And that was cute. And then, yeah, apparently, there's a big, I am a fan of Stormzy, who they mentioned in
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
intro. And it was kind of funny to, because obviously it's a British show and he's a global star, but obviously huge there. So it was a
No,
fun
I was gonna say,
name
how
drop.
how did you get into Stormzy? Because I feel like he is such a British artist, you know?
Fair, fair. Yeah, mainly through Dylan because we went to like high
Uh,
school in London, so
mm,
he knows a few
Still
things here and
plugged
there.
in. Yeah.
Well, a
Okay.
bit. But yeah, so now I gotta check which music video Allison was in of his. I gotta
Oh
backtrack.
yeah. I
Yeah,
anytime a celebrity pops up, I broke the news to someone recently that Tom Hanks is in a Carly Rae Jepsen music video, and they couldn't believe it. I'm like, I love a celebrity cameo in a music video, you know?
hilarious. Carly Rae Jepsen Tom Hanks collab.
Yeah. Um, Kim Kardashian was the girl in like an old Fall Out Boy video. I don't remember which
Mm.
song, but like second, third album.
Hmm.
I love it. I could talk about this for
And
hours.
that was deep in her Paris Hilton phase. When she was
Yeah,
in the Fallout Boy video, that's when she was Paris Hilton's assistant.
Oh,
right.
cool,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, on the rise, fame adjacent.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, okay. The signature challenge was to make 12 savory buns using a yeasted dough, any shape, any style. Let's go through them one by one. Let's start with Andy, who made Maisie's mini salami buns, chopped salami sticks, chives, cheddar cheese. Okay. What did you guys think of this one? I was like, this is basically a Slim Jim bun, right?
Yeah.
Ew, I didn't think of
Yeah.
that.
I will say, I think I had something like that last time I was in London. And yeah, I do enjoy this weird thing.
It makes sense because it's like if I think I'm sure they're using something slightly higher quality than a Slim Jim. And if you're listening from the UK and you don't know what Slim Jim is, consider yourself lucky. It's like picture like American snack food at its worst. That's what a Slim Jim is. The salt content is so high that I'm like, if you balance it with like a very, bland bread, I'm sure it'll be great. But still kind
Yeah.
of terrifying that his inspiration was like, I thought about using chorizo, and then I thought, why not use my daughter's snacks?
Hmm.
Um, Uh, Val pointed out that everyone in Britain pronounces it chorizo. Uh, and then I wrote down, I think, because multiple people use chorizo in this episode. I think at some point I heard Paul say chorizo, and I'm like, that's a man who's been to Spain.
Oh, right, right, right.
You got to hit it right, you know?
Let's see. Okay, this is another thing that Val put in her notes. Andy said he's talking about his daughter. He's like, I'm gonna miss my daughter. And then Val pointed out that like, aren't they only gone for like a day or two? How much could you possibly miss someone that you're gonna like take the train home to see tonight?
Oh, right. Yeah, they just go home.
They
But
just
yeah,
go
I don't
home.
know. I mean, I guess, it's the days away in the tent. Maybe he's just thinking about her and maybe normally on his usual car mechanic job, he can like go home for lunch or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. He only works within like a 2 kilometer radius, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't go anywhere where he can't walk home, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. He has to got to keep it tight.
It's nice.
Allison does a little bit with Andy's hats because he's been wearing a different hat every week. She's like, "Are you confident enough to bring 10 hats?" And he said, "No, I brought three. This is the last one."
He thinks it's foreshadowing his end. I do
Yeah,
think
exactly.
just the always with the banter, the host going around and chatting, I feel like everybody laughs. It's like it always ends and devolves into like such a giggle fest. It's so fun to watch, even if it's like not that
Yeah,
funny, but it's always really
yeah,
like I feel like, they're genuinely having fun. I kind of sometimes with Noel and Allison, almost I feel like that panic set in of like being when you're with like two best friends and like they're having a great time and you're like, shoot, should I leave?
yeah. You're like a third wheel for bits, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Like I don't have the same inside joke language as you guys.
Right, right, right. I'll see
Yeah.
myself out.
I do feel like this was what like my comedian brain when I first watched this show for the first time, I was like, oh, this is what feels different is that the comedy bits are not like super written. Like a lot of their little banter is
Mm,
literally just the kind of it's like small talk. They're just like the best possible people at small talk. You know what I mean? They're just like,
yeah.
what are you doing there? That looks pretty cool. Here's a little zinger I just thought of about that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It comes off really natural as a result, I think.
Yeah. Um, and okay, yeah, we can wrap up, Andy. Prue said she could eat these all afternoon. Nice flavor.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's talk about Eileen with her Jamaican brown chicken buns made with a cocoa bread, Jamaican brown stewed chicken, and a spiced, crispy chicken skin on top. This is the one that every episode there's one where I'm like, that's the one I want. This was the one where I was like, I want that bun.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the like shining moment, right? Is where you have to where you have to make it so good that we want a snack. We want a
hmm
bite.
If it titillates my tongue through the television, you're on the right track.
Hmm.
We're all glad that Ilian's feeling better after fainting last week. She seemed to be doing okay. They kind of gloss over it. They're like, "You feeling good?" She's like, "Yeah." And we're like, "Okay, cool, moving on." Um, and she mentioned that this is in honor of her mom, who, as we know, has passed away. So that's another half point for Ilian right there.
Hmm.
They were worried about the amount of chili in it, but the spice level was perfect. They liked it. Again, we've talked about this in the last couple of weeks, but all the bakes are like, they liked it. I don't know. What do you want? Moving on.
This was a particularly strong session, though, too,
Yeah.
around. Like, I mean, they kind of talk about that in this episode, but everybody was like nailing it. And I feel like bread is such a hard thing to do well. And they were
hmm
being very creative and who knew there are all these different types of ways to, incorporate savory things in bread. So yeah, it was also like, wow, well
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Paul talked, he said something to that effect where he's like, I think I was really surprised with how strong everyone was. And this is like one of the best sort of like group performances he's seen in a couple of years. So good on everyone here for making bread.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's talk about Dylan. And if you really called it, you believed in him,
Mm,
and here he is delivering. He made
mm,
gochujang and garlic buns.
mm.
Paul and Prue had never, it seemed like they'd never even heard of gochujang.
See,
And I
see, he's
I
bringing
I feel
flavors they
like,
ain't even heard of.
but it's not. I mean, it's not uncommon for I feel like us as Americans to have this thing that like they haven't heard of. There, you know what I mean? Like they're like peanut butter
Yeah.
and jam. That's weird, you know. And I don't want to take away from Dylan, but I do feel like the gochujang did a lot of heavy lifting insofar as like a lot of Paul's compliments are like, I've never had that before, which great, but that's
Sure.
not. You didn't invent
He
gochujang. You know
didn't,
what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah.
And then they also kept, I don't know if I was hearing it wrong, but they were like, go
Yes,
gang.
yeah, yeah. They
Which-
put a
Yeah.
G in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was sure, maybe it was doing a lot of heavy lifting. That being said, I'm like, that is also maybe part of it because they could introduce something and then they just hate it, right? So it's like it's kind of the
Right.
risk and reward, high risk, high reward. And he did incorporate like the garlic in there too, which like
hmm
it's gotta be
That's a
good.
nice touch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iffy, how does it feel to finally have Dylan pay off in such a big way here?
Very good. Very good. I trusted in it and I didn't doubt him for a second. So that really,
Run the tapes.
yeah, I know.
That's
It's
true. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Um, I was gonna say I was surprised at how much like throughout the edit of this episode, they kept showing Dylan doing these techniques. Like he was the one who demonstrated like window pane technique, where like you stretch out the dough. If it's not breaking, you can see a light through. And he also did the you push your finger in, if it springs back, I was like, oh, Dylan fucks with some bread.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is, I guess, the way. So it's not like he just randomly made good bread here. Like he
Right.
has done it, and they really. What did they call the thing where you slice the thing and it's got the little cool little eyelet in it or whatever after,
Wait, what?
or what? Just the like design where he like sliced it so that when it came out, it has like a
Oh,
nice like ridge on it.
yes.
That looked
Yeah.
good. Yeah, very very technical stuff came through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Very
yeah.
skilled baker. Paul seems to agree. Paul gave him a handshake on these little gochujang buns, and the look on Dylan's face was like true. It's like reality TV at its best when it's like, oh, this person's genuinely shocked. You know what I mean? He looked so happy. Last week I called him like little brother energy, and I'm like, this was like, I'm proud of my little brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Little brother's growing up, getting his handshake.
Um, Dylan's bit is where we also Noel takes a little shot at Gordon Ramsay, who we talked about last season. Noel said, okay, Dylan said he wants to be a chef. Noel said, you're too handsome to be a chef. Have you seen Gordon Ramsay? He looks like an omelet with human eyes.
It's
Just shot
uh,
fired right at
I
my
was
man's. He's
laughing.
buff. He's a buff
He's
guy.
buff.
So
Gordon
funny.
Ramsay looks incredible for his age. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever seen like he did like a men's health cover or something recently, and it's not like he doesn't look like he's his age. I think Tom Cruise is the same way where it's like it's not like he doesn't look like he's in his 50s or 60s or whatever, but for being in his 50s or 60s, looks incredible. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh, I mean, I would think Tom Cruise does look a little like he's not very aged in the last 40 years, but
Yeah.
yeah, Gordon Ramsay. And I mean, the funny thing is, then Noel walked it back like immediately or something.
Right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, God, well, we're gonna run into him probably. So he's a great guy. Sounds really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We all know that Gordon Ramsay could beat anyone in a fist fight for
Oh,
sure.
right, right.
He's also, people forget, he's like over 6 feet tall. Gordon Ramsay's like a big guy. You know what I
Sure.
mean? He could
Yeah.
destroy us. Maybe not
No,
instantly.
yeah, yeah. I was like, speak for yourself on that
Yeah.
one. I'm bodying everyone.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Dylan before we move on?
Mm.
I can't remember if it was in this round, but he has a Shiba Inu. Oh no, it was in the last round because he talks about his
Oh,
cats. But
that's
big
right.
fan
Yeah.
of I grew up with a Shiba, so I was very
Oh.
jealous.
A Sheba that he did not want at first.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right, right, right. Yeah. It's like I didn't
He's
really want
very
her,
proud of
but
his two cats. Yeah, he's like, I have these two cats and this dog. Ugh. But yeah, that was during his cornucopia. We'll get to that. Let's talk about John. We're gonna have to talk about John. He made Yamas buns with oregano or oregano, as they say, oregano pesto, caramelized red onion feta. This is my like I called it, but I was and during the draft I was like, he looks like the kind of guy who, if you're here, we go to Fire Island. I guess the Europe equivalent would be Mykonos, and sure enough, here he is making a Greek bun. I'm like, I knew
right.
it. John spends every fucking summer in Mykonos, and I know it. And one year he changed it up and went to Turks and Caicos and went, not as fun. I'm going back to Mykonos. I know it. I know it in my bones.
I was like wondering where you're going with that, but totally, I guess the feta, yeah, it did, and the buns, it didn't work out so hot, unfortunately.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah. So
prove it enough,
he,
unproved.
yeah, he didn't prove it, and he didn't prove he had it.
Oof,
The proving
dagger
puns
to
can
the heart.
go. Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of air in there. They steamed from the inside, made a huge pocket. Not great. Not a great start for John, and it only gets worse from here, as we will see. Um, okay, we can kind of go through the rest quickly. Sumaya made sunflower buns with a Bangladeshi chicken curry filling that also looked really good. Nelly made her ethnic harmony buns with a Slovakian bread and a Pakistani curry filling because her husband's Pakistani. So it was like the filling was Pakistani, the dough was Slovakian. It was a perfect match. Once again, give Nelly her own show. There was a little bit I wrote down where, again, this is like Noel just like off the cuff. He's like, "Can you save some of that egg wash for Paul's cheeks?" And then she fired right back with, "They're already shiny." And I was like, "Ooh, give Nelly
Ooh.
her own show."
Yeah. Nelly ready.
She's she's so
Nelly
funny.
ready.
That's our shirt. We're gonna sell t-shirts saying Nelly ready.
Nelly ready. Stop playing because Nelly ready.
But yeah, she cut her buns like pizza slices. There was a dip. It was really good. Mike made his bao buns. It's a pun that works more when it's written more so than said out loud, but like a bao bun, soy sauce, cumin, five spice, and a lamb mince on the inside. The lamb, of course, from his farm, the rosemary from his garden. Allison's bit is she goes, "Is this lavender going in it?" And he says, "That's rosemary." And I was like, Allison, I've never related to anything more.
Or yeah, yeah. And then they just burst out laughing again. That was funny. I feel like so he's bringing ingredients from his garden. I mean, they're like basically, you know, they don't have any production costs on this, man. You could just
Mhm.
like show up and bring your own stuff and I guess use their oven, but
I
they're
mean, I do feel like this is a thing that you can do in a physically smaller country. Like you can get anywhere in the UK by train within a couple hours, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh
I
yeah.
see.
You could not film this show in Los Angeles and have someone from Pittsburgh, you know what I mean?
Right, right, right. And truck in their lavender
You
and
couldn't
or
even have someone from like Long Beach if you shot it in Los Angeles. It'd be like, that
Yeah.
commute's too far.
Yeah,
well,
yeah, that's too
apparently, yeah.
much.
The Master
Hey,
Chef auditions, they're got to bring their cold salmon
That's
in a
right.
Tupperware.
That's right.
yes.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Are you guys good at identifying like plants and flowers and stuff like that? I'm terrible at it.
I
Mm,
can
no, I'm gonna just be real with you. No, that is not in my forte. I'm not good at that. That is for someone else, and that person is not me. I'm not.
I
Yeah,
feel
I'm
like
in
there are
that same
certain
boat.
ones, I recognize that are native to the LA region, but
Mhm.
what's cool is there's a app. I don't have it downloaded yet, but you
Oh,
can like take a photo and it'll be like that's this kind of oak,
I
so
remember hearing about this like a long time ago, and I remember thinking that like the idea is good, but the system can't possibly work that well. And literally only in the last year, where like AI has become more prevalent, have I thought, oh, it probably works better now. I think
oh,
AI would be a
interesting.
lot better at just recognizing a plant, being like, here's what this plant is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty good. I mean, I'm sure it makes a lot of mistakes still, but if for the purposes of rosemary versus lavender, I think
Right.
it could cut it.
Yeah. I'm going to throw myself under the bus. One of my embarrassing stories is in college. You know, college, your first time out in the world. This is the first time you're outside your own frame of reference. I remember stepping outside and saying to my friend, "Oh, it smells like lotion out here." And she looked at me and she was like, "Do you mean flowers? You know that lotion smells like flowers, right?" Because I grew up in a desert and I didn't know what flowers smelled. I was
Oh,
just like, it just
interesting.
smells
Sure.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that lotion smell is, lotion flower.
I'm s- I'm so abhorred by who I was in college. You
Oh,
know what I
well,
mean?
no, don't get me started on my own. Oh,
Well, now I
failure in the
have to.
ground. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Just yeah,
Yeah, I feel
classic
like
18-year-old stuff, I suppose.
yeah, I feel like that's a more coming of age time than like puberty. I feel like we've really mined sort of like big mouth pen 15 like puberty is when you like become an adult and I'm like, no, I was not a fully formed human until like maybe 27. You know what I mean? I was
Well, I
still
think yeah,
learning things about the world at 19.
it's getting later and later for younger generations. I think in a good that's a positive thing because I
Yeah.
think there's just general like more prosperity, so you get a little more sheltered longer, and that's nice. And I think like yeah, it's just there's many different versions of coming of age, I suppose, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially for
Let's
Americans and university and stuff.
right, right, exactly. Not enough college kids on TV. Let's get more
Yeah.
college shows.
Let's get those college kids there. We gone are the days of the hills and
Right, yeah.
Laguna
Yeah,
Beach. You know.
yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Jill with her berry black pudding buns. She also made chorizo, goat cheese, black pudding, and her mustard custard, which she said she loved to say it. I love to say it too. Perfect.
Right. Yeah, that sounded a little strange. I'm not sure if like either, I don't think like having the mustard in a sort of dessert custard word next to adjacent like is kind of gross,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, it's fun. Fun rhyming.
yeah. It conjures
Mm,
up
yeah.
weird imagery, but I'm sure it tasted great.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgie made her pesto brunch buns with pesto, sun-dried tomato, and mozzarella. Okay, here we go. So Paul said it was great, and he would have given a handshake if she had just added more Parmesan to it. Wasn't quite there. And they were like, so is it a handshake? And he said, no, but I'll give you a pat on the shoulder. And here's my proposition. To me, this feels like half of a handshake.
Sure.
So it can get half the handshake points, which is +1 point instead of +2. How do we all feel about that?
Ooh.
I thought about that too. I was
Mhm.
like, I wonder if this kind of counts as like a
Yeah.
partway there. So I'm all
I
for it,
mean,
but
it would be
it
your
benefits
point.
me. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm more interested in Niffy's opinion as the other party here.
Yeah. I mean,
Because here's the argument is that they talked about it in the moment about how this is almost a handshake. And then they bring this bit back at the end where they're like, this is the first ever like Paul Pat. Are we going to see more Paul Pats? So if this becomes a thing, it
yeah,
feels
then I think
reasonable
it
to
should
assign
be.
some sort of. Go ahead.
So are we thinking the pat is better than the handshake?
No, Pat is half a
Yeah.
handshake. So a handshake is
Yeah.
2 points. To me, a Pat is 1 point.
Yeah, I'm down for the 1 point. Yes.
All right. We will
That
award
makes
Georgie
sense.
and therefore Sierra 1 point for the first ever Paul Pat. How'd you guys feel about the Pat? I feel like she kind of got cheated. I'm like,
Yeah,
if all that's missing is Parmesan, shake the hand.
I feel like you're gonna I it made sense and it kind of in a way legitimized the Paul handshake to me
Mm.
Mm,
because it really feels like he's definitely going to judge you harder during bread week because that's his shit.
Mhm.
hmm
And so because of that, he's like, well, as this isn't like a handshake level bread, but as a bread master, bread daddy, I know that I'm gonna get that this is worth acknowledgement, just not full acknowledgement.
Right.
Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like, I mean, I guess I'm kind of surprised. I don't know because I haven't watched a ton of I haven't watched the other seasons, so I'm not sure how the handshake normally gets rolled out, but I feel like there have been a lot of handshakes, so I can kind of understand him being like, God, if I shake her hand, then like
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're handing out a lot here. So, if he has to kind of give a intermediary version, just because again, it's like inflation or like, we have to adjust
yeah,
for inflation here. Everyone's doing really well. Can't just
Yeah.
handshake it up.
yeah.
Yeah. A
He
hand.
did it on a curve.
Mhm.
Yeah. Inflation just made me think like, yeah, a handshake in season 2 is worth like 3 handshakes today.
Yeah,
No, that I feel that was active criticism in the fan community a couple years ago. There were like a couple seasons where everyone's like, he's giving out handshakes left and right. It's ruining the show. And I feel like he like read the online criticism was like, I gotta dial it back with the handshakes.
yeah. It's like I gotta keep it real chill.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we'll award 1 point to Georgie there. The only other person we didn't talk about was Christian with his mushroom and sage pesto buns. This one was kind of weird to me. So it was hazelnut, truffle oil pesto, porcini mushrooms. Sounds delicious, but Prue was like, porcini and truffle? I've never had those together. And that one I was like, I had that on a pizza today. You know what I mean? I
Right. Yeah. It's like,
it
how
didn't seem
different
that
can it
unusual to me.
be? Right. Yeah. It's both
Yeah.
mushroom. I mean,
I
I'm sorry if I'm offending the mushroom
Mushroom,
community
the mushroom
for not,
fandom,
yeah, I know not all mushrooms
mushroom
are
gang.
the same, but it's like, surely they go together.
Yeah, like all the time. And I guess this is one where I was like, that surely that can't be an American comp. Like when they're like, oh, I don't like peanut butter and jelly, or I've never heard of gochujang. I'm like, I get it. There probably isn't a high Korean population in the UK, and PB&J is a uniquely American thing. But like porcini and truffle, or like during the judging, Prue was like, I didn't think pesto and mushrooms would go good together. I'm like, girl, that's like every pizza here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
like
very
I thought
true.
that
same
was weird.
cuisine. Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. But it worked, so good for Christian. Okay, that brings us to the technical challenge. We start the technical challenge, and there's a huge table up front, and Dylan guesses it right off the bat. He's like, "Oh, what if Paul makes it?" And then we watch him make it, and he was correct. It's a 7-strand plaited wreath. No instructions. You just get a demo from Paul. Uh, this was my like, "Oh, Paul's coming for Gordon Ramsay." Because one of everyone's favorite parts of MasterChef is when Gordon Ramsay does the demonstration, you cook along with them. And I'm like, it's so fun to see someone at the top of their game demonstrate that they can still do it. Like Paul literally did make a gorgeous little wreath like in 10 seconds. I'm like, this guy's good. This guy's still
Yeah,
got it. You know what I mean?
Sure. But then, I mean, and I don't know if they edited it as such, but like he really was just assembling it. Like he didn't roll the strands or the dough.
Yes.
So to me, I'm like, it's not the full
Okay.
challenge.
I agree, but here's the thing. Ev he okay, so yes, all the demo was just like here's how to braid and make the wreath. But then a bunch of people fucked that up, and I was like, well, then I guess clearly the demonstration was like the hard part. You know what I mean? Because I was like,
Sure, sorry.
okay,
I
here we
do
go.
think that it's because they rolled their own strands and the strands were already perfect for him, which does, if you make it a tight plait or whatever, it does
Yeah.
end up right. But if your strands are all thick and or too thin or anything, then like you're going to end up with kind of a weird wreath.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Or if the dough
I
itself is also the wrong consistency.
Yeah, but then it's like, do you want to watch him do a 45-minute demo of like how to make the dough, you know?
Sure. For TV, I think it works.
Yeah. I was I was surprised that so many people did have trouble with the braids because not, I mean, look, I don't want to sound cocky because I'm not a good baker, but like the braiding is what he was demonstrating. It was like, okay, you go from outside to inside. It didn't seem that hard. And yet, lots of people had a lot of trouble with the braiding. Did that surprise you guys?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, everything around the cornucopia and everything was mind blowing to me, and I couldn't.
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, all right,
Well, but this came before that. The cornucopia was
okay.
the end. This
Oh,
is the technical when it
Interesting.
was literally just like the wreath and
oh,
like
sorry. I thought you were talking about when they were braiding up the cornucopia. No.
no, no, no.
Oh, yeah, that when it's the regular loafish, you're talking about when they did like the loaf braiding, right? Like the normal kind of like
They took
challah-esque.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
looked like challah,
circular.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That I'm like, I've made challah. Less impressive. Less impressive. I'm with you. Less impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised that some people messed it up, but
Right.
whatever. No mixers for the challenge. I thought that was very cruel. Everyone was working it by hand. And I also thought this was a challenge that was like not great for TV because there's not a lot of last minute drama. Like the last 10
Yeah.
seconds,
Oh.
everyone kind of pulled it out of the oven and they're like, well, there it is. I hope that's right. There's no like fiddling with it, trying to fix it. It's
Yeah.
like that it is, it's out of the oven. There you go.
Yeah, I would also agree that do we feel like it's just kind of a straightforward dish that you
Hmm.
that like you either know how to make it or you don't. I think the hardest
Yeah.
thing is the braiding, probably why, you know, they were probably happy. They're like, fuck yeah, this person.
Yeah.
You suck at this, great.
Right, right. Yeah, like all the bad stuff happened like
Yeah.
in the middle. Like if it was, oh shoot, I forgot the egg wash. I put it in the,
Yeah.
Right.
or like before, yeah, just before oven, and then oven is like, okay, well, whatever
Yeah.
happens, happens because it's out of my hands now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay, let's go in order from worst to first. In 10th place, How the Mighty Have Fallen. We got Dylan, dead
Mm,
last.
mm,
Underproved, not much glaze, quite
mm.
soft, needed longer in the oven. Um, I do think that it okay, so Dylan did something while he was waiting for it to bake or prove, where he rolled up plastic wrap and started practicing the plat with that. And I'm like, this kid is prepared.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That was innovative. That was very like, he's not gonna screw up with his precious dough. He's gonna do a trial run.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good
Yeah, but
planning. It did
sometimes
not help
you
him.
kind of get in your head. You over practice and then you blank. What's that thing about auditions? You keep doing the
Yeah.
audition over and over and over, and then when you go in,
Hmm.
ooh wee, it's a bad
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. He choked a little.
Yeah.
But that is okay because he got a handshake up top. Okay, in ninth place was John. The criticism they gave John was, "Where's the hole?" And I was like, "Why is no one making a joke about this?" This is traditionally a show that is like so happy to
Oh,
jump on
sure.
like naughty puns, and Paul Hollywood saying, "Where's the hole?" I'm like, "Come on, you guys, it's right there. That's better than soggy bottom me. Where's the hole? Come on."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. The hole was a major. Well, maybe they had it in there. Maybe it was like maybe they made it earlier or
Sure.
something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is also, I'm like, it's a wreath. You're supposed to turn. I don't know how you could take something stick shaped, turn it into a circle shape, and then be missing the middle of the circle, you know?
Again, though, I think it's like they made it too thick, and then they did make a circle, but then it expanded into itself and then
Right.
closed the hole while baking.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll shut up now.
It's
Yeah.
hard. No. I mean, I think that's part of like, yeah, the challenge of it. It's like you have to know that the hole's got to be really much
Right.
bigger
Yeah.
than before you put it
Because
in
it's
the
going to
oven.
close out the middle. Yeah, that
Mhm.
checks out. All right. Eighth place, Christian. Um, I thought there was a small bit that I thought was funny where he was like, I don't know if that's right. And then they cut to it and it looked perfect. I guess it wasn't that good of a bake, but just the plaiting part of
Oh
it,
yeah, yeah.
that was the part where I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He's a designer. It makes sense that he knows how to like evenly braid seven pieces of something. But then he was like, I don't know if that's right. I'm like, bro, it's perfect.
Right. It's like the kid in class was like, I don't know, mine's bad. And it's like, you're the
Yeah,
best
yeah, yeah.
artist.
Yeah,
Be
exactly.
quiet.
Yeah. After that's Georgie, and then Mike, and then Jill, who said she had a middle-aged injury from wheeling the garbage bins out to the sidewalk and apologized to her physical therapist. And I was like, that's sadly very relatable. I too have injured myself on a garbage can on garbage day, and nothing feels more stupid and defeating than just being like, oh, I have this bruise from my garbage can.
It's okay. They're unwieldy. They can be quite heavy,
There,
quite
yeah.
damaging.
Look, maybe if you live in a small town, those garbage cans are smaller, but in LA, they are gigantic cans and they can and will hurt you.
Mm.
Yes, that is true. Actually, though, I don't know where Jill lives or how her garbage cans are, though they sound unwieldy. But
Yes.
I feel like the last time I was in London, they do have smaller cans, but that is a city that needs smaller cans, I
Yeah, yeah.
suppose. But who knows if that's a UK wide thing or if she's got the bigger ones.
She might have the big ones
She
out
might
in
have the big
the
ones.
countryside or whatever. Yeah. Fourth place, Ilyine. Third place with a half a point for coming in third is Andy. He also gets another half point because he started out by putting his egg in the dough instead of saving it for the egg wash. So he had to start all over again. Um, I wrote down that everyone cheered for Andy when he finally got it in the oven, and that does not count as helping because again,
No.
re-ruling that helping is just helping. That felt like emotional support. That's not helping. Um, yeah, so he fell behind and he still placed in third. I'm like that to me, that's very impressive. To me, Andy's performance in this whole episode, I'm like, if his cornucopia hadn't fallen apart, I think he could have been Star Baker. Because the fact that he messed up and still came in third during the technical, I'm like, this guy knows how to bake bread. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
surprise that he did so well. I was kind of thinking though too. I was like, I wonder if it kind of worked out for him so he didn't like over knead it or I don't know,
Right.
Oh,
do
yeah.
something too
That's a
much
good
sweat
point.
over it.
Yeah, because it is possible to like overwork these and then it becomes tough.
Tough.
Oh.
But that didn't happen. Okay, second place, 1 point, Sumaya. They said it was well baked, whatever. And first place goes to Nelly. She gets a point and a half for getting first place and an extra half point because she immediately cries.
Oh, so sweet.
So
Yes.
sweet. So sweet. She
Yes.
said it was the biggest compliment she could ever have. Iffy, you got to be feeling good about having drafted Nelly, right?
Oh yeah, Nelly, which is I feel like that was one of my like soul picks. I really didn't have much to go off of based on vibe, and it seems like
Hmm.
the vibe check was very right. She is like turning up in a big way, and like like we're seeing, just like really like TV ready, having a good time, wooing us all. So yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Totally. Definitely a star. I feel like also it was so sweet how, I mean, just thinking about, she talked about obviously her kids last episode and then she like kind of made a point not to cry or it seemed like she was,
Yes.
she didn't really, but then this time like she gets this high praise from the king of bread himself and then she like
Yes.
cries. It's very
Yeah.
sweet. It's like, oh yeah, like gets a compliment, immediately cries.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Um, I mean, I would also compliment her. They pointed out that she did an extra plat to cover the seams of the big plat, and I was like, that's pretty cool. She made a tiny plat for the big plat.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was so cute.
Yeah.
The little one she was making. I thought she was just making it for fun and was going to make like a little
I thought so
extra
too.
side
Yeah.
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 chip.
Yeah, no, but it was in the service of the main bake and it worked out great. Um
Yes.
during the nope, I lost my place. Sorry, we can cut that out. Okay, here we go. Okay, moving on to the showstopper round. The challenge is to make a bread cornucopia with at least two different breads inside. They got 4.5 hours, which I was like, that's how I know this takes a lot of work. 4.5 hours to do anything is a crazy amount of time.
Yeah, God,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's such a funny challenge. Like, I guess I don't, I guess we've had some weird ones, like the puppet show was bizarre too, but this one is
Yes,
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
oh, it's so specific and it's just looks
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
And
but
it
It looks
just,
so stupid
yeah.
because the cornucopia takes up the whole oven. Like they put
yeah.
it on the lower rack and it would be the whole thing. And I'm like, this looks insane.
Yeah, but at least this felt more like food. Like, so I didn't
Sure.
quite hate it. You
Yeah.
know, we know my beef with the puppet show. We know that, but this actually, I was like, okay, this is a meal. It doesn't feel like
Hmm.
we're just pulling some craft that we're making these cooks do. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Sierra, sorry I cut you off earlier. Do you have something else to add?
Oh no, I think just, yeah, just that it was still like, just the idea of a cornucopia being, I guess, made of the same thing that's inside of it too is like very funny to me.
Yeah.
Had not thought about that, but you are correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, I'm like, oh, it's fun. It's fully edible. Everyone's having a good time,
Hmm.
and this, like I said, seems interesting. Seems like food. I'm in.
They would not have talked about this because there is no American Thanksgiving in the UK. But if someone in America this year, you now have a month to prepare, wants to
Yeah,
tackle a
Oh yeah.
bread cornucopia at your Thanksgiving table this year, I want to see it. Please send us those photos because the idea of it, I'm like, that feels American.
yeah, very daunting too. But that would be
Yeah.
so rad. Like you just get that gravy boat and a bunch of
Hmm.
cornucopia bread. Yeah, I'm in.
Hmm. Hmm. We're in. Invite us over. We'll be there.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about Jill. She made an all-day holiday cornucopia, onion and bacon plats, beer bread mini loaves, Devonshire splits, strawberries and cream. Um, they said their criticism was like, you kept it pretty safe, but it works. And this is kind of the same thing I was saying about her gingerbread man last week. I feel like Jill's playbook is like aim low, but execute well. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like nothing's gonna blow you away, but it'll be so competently executed that you're like, well, I can't eliminate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Oh, I think we're going to say the same thing, but it's a smart play. You keep it chill. You
Hmm.
don't, take too big of a swing. So at the very least, you have less room for error. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a smart move in this type of show, but you do kind of set yourself up in not being exciting.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, yeah, it's like that'll work now when there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people and you
Yes,
can kind of be in the middle.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
I
she
don't think
has
you can
to,
win with it.
yeah, yeah, like hopefully she can kind of like level up when it starts to whittle down.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because once you get to like top five, then they want to see you kind of like, shoot for the moon and do something crazy. And I feel like if you're just like, here's like the best version of a very basic thing, I don't know how far you can get.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Andy made his New York pizza buns, cinnamon pretzels, focaccia muffins. Uh, Immediately I was like, I did not think I would miss Jeff so soon, but I am dying to know what Jeff would have thought of this, being the native,
Oh,
like having a native New Yorker on set and then someone being like, I'm making a New York bake. I'm like,
Oh
I
yeah.
bring him back in. I
Yeah.
want to hear his commentary.
Let him sit on the sidelines coughing.
oh no.
Let him
Oh.
like, yeah, actually, that's bad.
Oh my God. But I mean, gosh, I think he probably would have been. And there was also no mention of him, which is kind of funny. I mean, maybe I don't know what they
Yeah.
would say, but it's also like, they made such a big deal of him being like from New York. Oh, come on,
Yes,
get that New York accent,
exactly. Yeah.
and then yeah, now we still have New York, but from Andy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was, it is funny because his story was like, oh, for my birthday, like my wife took me to New York
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and like I loved it.
Best
And so I'm
pizza I've
making
ever
that.
had.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then he made like Detroit style pizza.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This is yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Tell me your thoughts on Detroit stuff. I was like, wait, what? What are you doing? You just immediately lost the thread.
I mean, to me, it sounds like when an American goes anywhere else in the world and is like, well, I made sushi and because I love Beijing, or something like
Yeah.
it's like just like wrong kind of.
It's
But
like,
yeah,
hey.
so, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I gleaned from that. But I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
also
I
just
thought it
better
was
for
weird.
the bake.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, we
Um,
saw, but
we, I did think it was ironic that Paul tried whatever the pizza thing was. It was a pizza bun, and he was like, "This is too thick." And it was like, if Andy knew just a little bit more about Detroit style pizza, he could have spun it and been like, "Well, Detroit style pizza is thicker than New York style
yeah.
pizza,
So
so
that's
this is
why.
yeah."
Right, right.
But a weird choice to be like, "Yeah, it's a New York themed bake. I'm gonna do Detroit style pizza." Because there's nothing like I'm trying to imagine if an American made a Detroit style pizza bun, it's like you would caramelize the cheese, I guess. You would make it thicker, you'd put sauce on top, and he didn't do any of that stuff. So I'm like, he could have just left out the word Detroit and been so much better off.
Yeah.
The whole thing was weird to me.
Well, we've talked about how sometimes your descriptions kind of mess up your dish. You
Hmm.
could just present it, not trying to, say it's a certain thing, and it'll be better off
Hmm.
than if you did.
Hmm.
Right. And
Hmm.
speaking of, he had his pretzels that should have been
That's right.
deemed cinnamon rolls. And then he just was
He
like,
was
yeah,
like,
they
it
are,
is, it's a cinnamon roll. Yeah.
which is funny.
Yeah, he's quick on his feet. Um, yeah, okay. I am going to also award an extra half point to Andy here because we did hear him cry. There's a bit because his cornucopia is falling apart, so he's trying to put it together, and there's a bit where the camera's behind him and he puts his head on the desk, and you hear that like wet inhale, you know what I'm talking about when someone's like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a cry. I know a cry when I
Yeah.
Totally.
hear it. That guy's
Yeah. Oh
crying.
yeah.
No, well, seen like the fact that I think so. I watched with captions because that's what I do now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it did say like sobs in
Okay,
like
yes.
parentheses or whatever.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay.
So confirmed.
Great. Okay. So that's a half point there. Yeah. Prue's assessment was these breads are all acceptable, but they're called pizza and focaccia, and you gotta give me some pizza and focaccia, which is valid.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. Let's talk about John with his horn of pride, lemon ginger buns, cinnamon raisin bagels. The bagels looked awful. So bad.
Oh no. And
Bagels looked like chocolate chip cookies to me.
they were
Yeah.
an unfortunate, yeah, kind of grayish, it kind of looked like when you think, too much colors and then it kind of like,
Hmm.
and then it was sinking. That was a problem, right? Like normally it's supposed
Yeah,
to
it
Sinking.
was
float.
sinking,
Okay, right.
but it's never
Right.
sunk
Yeah.
before, according to.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
of
he makes it all
course.
the time.
Yeah. And yet, and
Yeah, that's
yet.
tough. That's tough.
But he knew it. He literally, as they're about to judge the bagels, he's like, I wouldn't even bother. Use it as a frisbee. So
Yeah, that
he
was
knew he
funny.
did bad.
Because he kind of had
He's
his
also
moment to cry and
yes,
like mourn his, time. So I thought that was probably how he was so, that kind of hit earlier.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I did feel bad for him because it's been a tough week. He literally failed at every challenge, and then his bagels are sinking. I'm like, that would break my spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are going to give him a half point for crying here. I thought Allison's little pep talk was lovely. Here's what I want to talk about is she does her pep talk, which is like, don't worry, it's not too late for someone else to do worse. She was like, someone could still fall over. And then they immediately cut to Andy's
Yeah.
cornucopia falling apart. I'm like, this editor is being a catty little bitch.
Hilarious. Yeah. I mean, they had to have somebody, but also they're both on my team. So I was like, well, that doesn't help me.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we got to say about John? It was
Mm,
it was a bad performance, but he knew
no.
it was bad. Yeah.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sumaya had a friendship and family themed cornucopia. Even she was like, it's kind of a boring theme. Whatever. I'm thankful for my friends and family. Cinnamon and star anise conchas, fataya bread filled with feta, dill and parsley. The cornucopia itself was spiced. Um, I thought it was weird that Paul was like, the conchas are a bit boring and you need a lot more going on. I was like, Paul, you're already on thin ice with the Mexican community because of the Mexican. I don't know if you guys are
Oh,
familiar with
I had
Mexican
heard of
Week.
that. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Kind of a
not.
disaster.
Okay.
So For a while, Bake Off started to do, we could do a whole special episode on this, and I don't want to talk about it too much. It's like people are going to get mad.
Okay.
For a while, Bake Off did like an international week every week. And I think like the straw that broke the camel's back was Mexico week because it was like, please make Mexican things. They made a lot of stuff that wasn't really Mexican. No one knew what guacamole was. It was just like a weird endeavor all around. So I was surprised that when someone was like, I'm going to make a concha, that Paul was like, I'm going to judge the shit out of this concha. Like, if I were Paul, I'd be like, I'm going to take a step back and be like, sure, let's move on to the next thing, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
see what happens here.
Maybe he didn't know it was Mexican.
That's
He just hasn't
that
learned his lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's like,
that
I
might
know
be
bread.
true.
There's not been a bread I haven't met.
Right. But yeah, I
Yeah.
was surprised about that too, because I'm like, well, I mean, I think that's just what a concha is, but maybe he
Yeah.
wanted something in the
Yeah,
center
it's
or something.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, not much else to say about Smire's Bake. Okay, Mike did Zeus's horn with an herbed olive and cheddar twist, cheese, tomato, and bacon twists, and a rosemary fougasse. Okay, this is where my Wi-Fi kind of crapped out, so I might have missed this. He told a story about how he loves plating because his little sister did like horse stuff with horses and he would take her to the horse stables. And I couldn't catch if he was like, I practice platting on my sister or I practice platting on my sister's horse. Did either of you catch what I needed
I
that
don't think, I think I
clarified.
missed that too. I guess I probably just assumed it was the horse, but I mean, I guess you could braid anything.
Is that a normal thing to like braid horse's hair? I'm not a horse
Yes,
guy. I don't.
I
that
think
that
so.
Okay.
I've met enough horse girls to know that that is a thing.
Okay. Yeah. Because to me, it's like, it's also not unusual to like braid your little sister's hair. People do that all the time, you know?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, Valerie said, I think he said the horse, but the caption was unclear. So
Sure.
remains to be seen if someone can clarify, someone personally knows Mike and wants to clarify how he learned how to plat, we would be eternally grateful.
Yes.
They said that the Kalamata olive flavor was good, but the fougasse, the shape is good, the texture is not, unfortunately. Let's talk about Georgie with her my favorite things. This was the one, another one where I'm like, that she's got my number with the flavor profile. This is all right up my alley. Pumpkin pecan buns, chocolate hazelnut babka, tahini swirls. That is, I love that. I want that right now.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. 100. Just killed it. 9 times out of 10. They slept. Y'all didn't believe, and now you see.
hmm hmm
To all the Georgie haters out there.
So,
Yeah, to all
so
the
the people who
Georgie.
didn't believe in her before.
Yeah.
Yeah, now
The
you're on
words.
notice.
She also did something that I thought was very like good housekeeping, Martha Stewart. I'd never seen this, but to make the pumpkins look like pumpkins, she like tied twine around the dough so it would like bake out like a pumpkin. That was so clever. I thought that was so cute.
I feel like I've seen a couple Instagram reels or TikToks where people do that. It's probably because I'm getting some fall recipes
Oh,
for
okay.
the upcoming holiday. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that is kind of like a fun way. I've never seen it with bread, but I think I see people do it with like, marzipan or like
Oh,
something kind of,
sure.
anything that could be molded. That's just like the
Yeah,
easiest way to get to a pumpkin.
that makes
Mm.
sense. Have you found a recipe that you are excited for and you're like, this is going to be the signature of the fall?
Oh, how funny. I mean, I actually just made a little I found this I think it was a Japanese Instagram, but they made little burgers
Ooh.
um out of like mushrooms, like using two mushroom caps as the buns, and you put little sesame seeds on
Oh,
them, and you
cute.
put little turkey, or whatever you want burger patty,
Yeah.
and then little tiny slice of every little thing. And you just do that. And I have like a takoyaki maker, which is like when people do the little
Oh,
ball frying
nice.
thing.
Yeah.
So they use that to fry the mushroom thing. Anyway, regardless, it's not really fall, but I'm this is fresh in my memory, and I was proud of the outcome. It looks like cute little burgers. Use a toothpick to keep it together.
Oh, that's adorable, and I love that.
Good stuff.
Okay, let's talk about Dylan with his cat cornucopia, country loaf with whipped bone marrow, amaretto creme
Ooh.
brulee donuts, and maple bacon cinnamon nuts. Yeah, okay, I had that same reaction, Iffy, to whipped bone marrow just as a dip. I was so impressed by that.
Yeah.
Like going beyond just like baking, I'm like, whipped bone marrow dip. Why aren't we all doing that?
Yeah. That's it seems like such a perfect kind of combination of those things, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Because
on that.
we've all had, like bone marrow at a restaurant. They fucking give you the spoon and you scrape it across bone. It's not a pleasant experience, but like whipped as a little dip for your bread. I'm in. I'm sold.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So clever.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we already talked about his two cats and his one dog that he hates. Nellie did not have a name for her cornucopia, but it was a potato and onion bread horn with poppy seed and orange samosas, walnut wreaths, sweet cream cheese buns. They cut open this poppy seed and orange samosa. I don't know if you guys had the same reaction I did, which was, holy shit, that's a lot of poppy seeds. It
They
was
do.
like thick black paste in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. You're definitely testing positive for heroin or whatever that
Yes,
poppy
yeah,
seed
yeah.
thing is. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
that was a Mythbusters. They proved that it's like, yeah, you eat enough poppy seeds, you can test positive on a drug test.
right, right. Yeah. You pop a couple of those samosas, you're about to really
Yeah.
go to prison. No. I don't know. I don't know what happens. But yeah, no, it was funny. They commented on that, but then they ate it and they said it was
Yes.
great, right? Like
They loved it.
it
Oh
was
It
too
yeah.
was
much.
delicious. Nellie looked very proud. It was great.
Oh yeah.
Ilyine also had no name for a cornucopia, but it was a platted bread horn, feta parsley and harissa wreaths, jalapeno and sun-dried tomato babka, and a halloumi, coriander, olive knotted bun. She threw in the mint at the last second because Paul was like, you know what I would do is add mint. And this is after last week. He kind of Paul got on proof for like giving a hint. He was like, we can't help them. But then this week he's like, it goes great with halloumi. Mint. Anyway, have fun. And then she did it and he was like, this is great. And I'm like, Paul, look, I love Ilyine, but you're starting to play favorites.
Yeah. I think that, after Eileen kind of had that, situation, I think Paul's just trying to, step up and be like, hey, I'm just looking out.
Helping out someone who just fainted.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair, fair.
Okay, and then finally, Christian did the Wildflower Delights, garlic and Stilton orchids, strawberry and cardamom jam roses. The orchids looked weird. Paul was like, I know what an orchid looks like. That's not an orchid. He was right. They looked weird. Um,
Oh, he tried to. I mean, yeah, Christian continuously has such great aesthetic, right? Like design guy,
yes.
right? And I
Yeah.
did feel like his looked really cool. I mean, especially the cornucopia looked really good with the flowers
Hmm.
and everything. But I feel like it's like the orchid sure looked a little strange. But it's like it's clearly an attempt at an orchid. The best that could be 2D. So I feel like it's kind of a, unfair because he at least he was doing something quite complicated that is an
Yeah.
impression
Yeah.
of an orchid, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give him some credit there. Here's what I thought was weird is they were like, we can't taste the Stilton. And I was like, we know from other shows that Stilton is a strong ass cheese. During MasterChef last season, they were like, here's the big curveball Stilton. Everyone's like, I don't know how to use this. I'm like, how do you make something so strong just disappear in your bake?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
no
yeah.
answer. I tried
No,
thinking of it. I
yeah.
was like,
Who
yeah.
knows?
Okay.
Yeah, I
No,
guess just
it's
didn't use enough. And maybe it is a
Yeah.
thing of like, this is a funky guy, funky cheese rather. So
mhm.
if I put too much, it's going to overtake it. And
Yeah.
then they
Right,
overcompensate by
right.
not putting enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
I'm gonna guess that was the case. Okay. The challenge ends. They talk about John and Andy both struggled in the showstopper. Very unfortunate. In line for Star Baker, getting 1 point apiece. Nellie, Georgie, and Dylan. I thought this was a funny joke where they were like, Paul, were you baking rolls like this when you were Dylan's age? And he says, no. And they're like, well, how old were you when you baked like this? And he said, 56. Funny, hilarious, great. Got to give credit where it's due. Our star baker this week is Dylan, even though he came last in the technical. I thought that was
Oh, yeah.
surprising. Usually, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, it's like you have to be so good in the other two challenges. They're like, we don't care if you came in last. We're gonna overlook that. Usually, it's like someone who like kind of did in the middle in the technical. You know what I mean? But he did so good with the other two bakes. They're like, it's got to be him. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think that's where his, innovation and standing out, like, we were talking about Jill being kind of maybe more safe, right? Like he's kind of
Yes,
the
yeah,
daring one. So that's where that really pays off because it just probably leaves such an impression in their minds that they're like,
right.
I kind of even forgot about his middle bake and how it was so poor. And like
Hmm.
the fact that I think, well, yeah, because I think, but looking at the ones who are in line, Nelly, right? Like probably had, if it was very much
I
numerical,
think
like
so.
probably had the
Yeah.
strongest, but yeah, I guess it's just something about, maybe they weight the final showstopper a little bit more or who
Right.
knows?
Yeah.
And that sort of technical one in the middle is like maybe the least important sometimes because it's kind of forgettable, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right. It's like he took bigger swings. You're whipping out gochujang and whipped bone marrow. It's like it's kind of hard to beat that if they're also executed correctly, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Um, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, no, no.
Yeah. All right, cool. So going home this week is John. It's fine. He said it was expected. He just had a bad week. And Paul goes back to having the bluest eyes in the tent. Uh, John points out that he was the first Star Baker of the season, and he had a good week last week, and now he's gone. So it's just like it is a reminder that anyone can have a bad week. He did cry again on his way out the door, but we've talked about this in the. I don't think we've talked about it this season, but we've talked about it in past episodes where multiple instances per episode is still just like one award of points, so he doesn't get double cry points because there were 2 instances of him crying. And this brings us back down to we now are one player down each. So the teams are now even. We each have 3 people on our teams. So things are very exciting. Let's talk about our points. As a reminder, you can find our rules on our Instagram at TV Chef Fantasy League. So again, last week, Nelly gets the dedicating a bake to someone who has passed away point. That's a half point. Last week, Ilian's hands are shaking. That's a half point. This week, technicals. First place, Nelly, 1.5. Second place, Sumaya, 1 point. Third place, Andy, a half point. Okay, here we go. There's a lot more. In line for Star Baker, 1 point apiece. Nelly, Georgie, Dylan. Star Baker is Dylan with 2 points. Ilian dedicated something to her mom, who, as we know, has passed away. That is a half point. The handshake went to Dylan. That's 2 points. Georgie got a pat on the shoulder. We've decided that is 1 point. Andy started something over again. That's a half point. And this week we got tears from Nelly, Andy, and John. So that is a half point each for crying, which means at the end of this week, I gain 1 point. That is all from Sumaya. Thank you, Sumaya. Sierra, you gain 4 points. Pretty good. Iffy, hold on to your butt here. You gain 9.5 points.
First big week in TCFL history.
That's true.
Yeah,
This
it
is
took
like
long
the
enough.
most points you've ever gained in a week ever in 3 seasons of us doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, so that everyone on your team scored this week, Iffy. Dylan brought in 5 points. Nelly brought in 3.5. So those were your like heavy hitters there. But 9.5 points. You got to be feeling good, right?
Oh yeah, I'm feeling good, but I'm curious of where this lands me.
Okay, so here we go. This I am so excited to tell you guys this. Right now, Iffy, you have 14 points.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have 14 points. Sierra has 13 points. We are, for all intents and purposes, pretty close to tied. It is a dead even heat.
Wow. What a
Amazing.
whoa. Major.
This is
Major.
Yeah,
wow.
this has never happened for us. We've
And we're
never
all
been
down.
close.
Yeah, we're all down one player
That's
each.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a level playing field moving forward.
Oh my gosh.
So
Oh,
this is I'm so excited because now it's sort of like being back at square one. We all have basically the same amount of points, same amount of players, but now we know a little bit more about the players, so now it becomes fun.
yes. Yes, now we're like locked in. Like in a like we know why we're rooting for them, and that makes it even more fun.
Sure.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see what happens next week. Hopefully I'll be back in town for it. Hey, folks, if you like our show, please head to maximumfun.org/join. That is where you can support us for as little as $5 a month. It really helps us out. Thank you so much. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, you can drop us a line on Instagram at TV Chef Fantasy League or send us an email at chef@maximumfun.org. If you're doing your own Bake Off Fantasy League, please tag us and let us know. For full unedited episodes, you can check us out on YouTube. Thanks again to my co-hosts Sierra Kato and Ithi Wadiway. We'll be back next week. TV Chef Fantasy League is a Maximum Fun production. Our producer is Valerie Moffat. Our theme song is by Dylan Van Auken. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at TV Chef Fantasy League.